It's got the combination of, this is the solo seat, and it has the this is the lowering kit. So again, it made sense for me to have the lowering kit because without it, it'd sit up about here, and that got me way sitting up too high. So this gets me down low.
That's good.
It's run all the way back, so that's why you have this gap here. The stock seat comes all the way up here, and the solo seat normally would sit up closer, but with long legs, it made a lot more sense to pull it back like that.
Good.
So let's see. This is all stock here, just for your reference. This side toolkit, you got your spare cables.
Oh.
And then you got your electric stuff in
And you
here.
mean like clutch cable?
Yeah, there's a clutch cable and a brake cable in here.
Have you broken either one yet?
No, not on this one.
So it's about due.
You probably wouldn't. I mean, and I've got the lubrication tool. I'll give you that too. So I've always kept the cables lubed. That I wouldn't worry about it too much, but they're here.
Okay.
That's there. You got the locking case for the battery there.
Oh, okay.
This is kind of useless. This is the traditional military side stand. You can see how short it is. It leans way over, and I don't know if they did that to get a, just to get it lower to the ground or whatever. But I never use it because it scares the heck out of me because I'm always afraid it's going to fall over. It never has. I've used it before. It's never fallen over. It just looks weird to me. So but that's how they made it.
Pegs look good. These big beefy pegs.
Oh yeah,
Shifter.
Yep. Yeah, this is the left side shift. It comes from the factory like that.
Yeah.
But that is a modification, as you know. The original one goes on the other side. So it's got a linkage that runs across underneath.
Okay.
Which puts a little slop in the gear shift compared to where you might expect it because there's just so many moving pieces in there.
Okay.
But that's just something you kind of get used to. This is nice here in the brake setup. They've got the little, it's a quick adjust on the brake to take up slack in the chain and to adjust the brakes here. And it's got all the little pointers and whatnot. So it's real easy to do the adjustments without having to take a whole bunch of stuff apart.
Okay.
Let's see.
But I mean, normally the brakes don't need.
I never adjusted. I did one adjustment at the 500 mile mark on the chain just because you get a little slack when that new chain loosens up. One click on the adjuster and it's fine.
Okay.
Let's see. These are obviously not stock either. The Bullet tail lights. Swap those out. And let's see.
This rattles, I'm assuming?
It does, yeah. You can see I put little rubber pads on there. And then I had to cut the back, so these are designed for just the stock bike. They weren't designed to go on the with the saddlebags.
Okay. So for the kind of see, I picked up vehicles before, and I always wish that I had done so. That's why I'm recording.
This side, this toolbox is just open one. You've got spare tube.
Oh.
And you've got the toolkit here.
Okay.
Don't get anything crazy in here. Yeah, it's pretty straight up. I threw a spare spark plug in there. And
of course, it's all metric.
No, this has got a weird combination of. Yeah, you have to guess when you're doing something. Is it metric or is it imperial? Because all the original tooling used imperial, but some of the things they've added later uses metric, like the carb and the air filter are metric.
Okay.
Just I know from experience because something I've taken off a lot, but some of the other things are imperial, so you have to guess, which is not nearly as bad as the Triumph had all three. The Triumph had imperial, metric, and Whitworth.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Whitworth is a terrible British design that nobody uses. This got the shorty exhaust on it. I've got the stock exhaust over there.
And I notice it's not wrapped in black tape. I've seen a lot of them like that.
People like the look.
It's just for looks.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
Oh, okay.
The shorty exhaust. The carb has been rejetted for this exhaust, so you're all set there. Air filter. It's got the high flow oil pumps installed down here. Nothing you'll ever have to mess with, but just it's nice to know it's there. It just moves more oil, keeps it cooler.
You put that on?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why this paint is all missing on this. This is where the oil filter is actually a cartridge that sits inside here, and the pump sits in this housing.
Okay. So when you change the oil, you have to take that bolt off and
Yeah, this
the
bolt
little
spins
filter.
off. Yep, it comes out, that comes off, and there's a filter cartridge that sits in there.
Okay. So an oil change is 3 quarts,
It's in the book.
2 quarts, something
Yeah,
like that.
I can't ever remember. Right here is the cover for the timing gears.
Okay.
And again, the book offers you 2 options to do it, whether you do it hot or cold.
Okay.
I tend to, on this, I'll do an initial setting cold, and then go and let it run and do a hot check,
Okay.
and it'll tell you in there about the amount of clearance and looseness you want on the tappets.
And how often do they recommend?
Really, it's at this point it's mostly like spring, and then at your mileage checks,
Okay.
or if it starts to sound really noisy to you.
Okay. Like a clacking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it starts to rattle a bit. Now that being said, this design is fairly loose.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen the Harley shirts about loud pipes save lives. There's an Enfield shirt that says loud valves save lives.
Okay.
It's just naturally that way.
Okay.
And then, okay, we got all that. One more thing for you to see over here, you probably want to get a picture of. I mentioned to you that the carburetor can be a little sensitive to changes in temperature and
Right.
pressure and whatnot. So this big knob right here, that's the idle set screw right there. So if you start it up and you run a normal amount of choke, and then if it's idling low or feels like it wants to die at a stop sign, I'll just reach down and adjust that. The trick to it is there's actually just a nubby little pin on the other side of this that sets in a groove in the slide. And so if you need to adjust it at the stoplight, the way to do it is to roll on a little bit of throttle, which will take the tension off, and then just reach down with your thumb and finger and just give it a little twist, and it'll reset where you want it to be.
Okay.
Very, very occasional that has
Yeah.
to be done, but it's a little trick to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you do it without rolling throttle on, all it does is jams that pin into the into the slide and doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah.
This is the points in here, points and condenser in here. So when you need to adjust the clean and adjust the points, this cap comes off here. It's got a real it's a crazy setup. I don't know why they did it, but most bikes, the points sit on the side of the crankshaft, and on this one there's this tower, I guess, of gears. So here's where the crankshaft sits. You've got this tower of gears that goes up and then drives across for the points. So that's how it is. And so this is probably a good point to talk about TDC. You were curious about the TDC. The way this bike is set up, it's a dry sump. So it's got the oil tank is built in as part of the crankcase.
Okay.
But it's separate. So the oil tank sits here. And if you park the bike with the piston at bottom dead center, piston would set down here. The crankshaft, of course, would be at bottom dead center. And what you can get then is you can get a siphon from the tank through the main bearing journal. And so what it'll do is it'll wet sump the sump at the bottom, which is supposed to be dry. It'll siphon oil out of the tank into the sump. So when you start it up, you get a big cloud of smoke. And if it's a lot of it in there, you get a tablespoon or so of oil spit out the duck bill.
Okay.
So that's why when you shut it down,
all over the chain and down onto the ground, I guess.
and then it drips all over the garage and makes a big mess. So the trick when you shut it down, after you turn it off, you got the decompressor lever here.
Decompressor
Yep, this is another new thing to know, which we'll actually cover this in starting. So we're doing this a little bit backwards, but because it's a single large cylinder, you can't get enough force on the kickstand to kick it over without the decompressor.
Okay.
So this actually goes to a spring on top of the cylinder, which opens a hole in the cylinder, decompresses it, and allows you to cycle.
Okay.
So what you do when you shut it down, after it's shut down, go ahead and push the Kickstarter until you feel resistance. Okay, now I know that it's starting its compression stroke. Hold the decompressor, listen for it wheeze.
Yeah.
Which tells you that it's moved now to top dead center.
Top dead center, I got you.
Let go of the Kickstarter, how I check it. Turn the key on and look for the amp meter to stay centered.
Okay.
Because when it's at TDC, the points are open, so there's no draw. So that's how I know it's TDC. If it wasn't, say I forgot to do this. Yeah, the ammeter's a little deflected, a little bit on the red side.
Yeah.
That tells me it's not at TDC, so I need to cycle through, listen for it wheeze, and it's centered up.
Okay. So every time you shut it down, you do this, so that
Right.
when you go to start it the next day or the next time,
Right.
it's ready to
Yeah.
start.
Now, if you're just out for the day, if you're stopping to get a hamburger or you're stopping to gas up, who cares?
Okay.
If it's going to sit overnight, you want to go ahead and set it to TDC,
Okay.
or else it'll, you run the risk of it wet something the next time.
Gotcha.
So while we're talking about that for starting, if you want to use electric start, it's no big deal. It's just like anything else.
I'll never use it.
Never use it. I never do.
Yeah.
Because that's half of the fun.
Right.
But starting sequence, we got the fuel tap here.
Yep.
Down is on,
Okay.
or auf if you're German for some reason.
Okay.
Auf starten. And then up is reserve. Straight across is off. So it's just fuel on. The choke is over here on the other side. Labeled choke.
Oh, where? Not on the handlebars.
No, choke is right there.
Oh, okay.
It literally lifts the valve inside the carburetor.
Gotcha.
So fuel on, choke on, key on. Now you probably parked it at TDC, but if you didn't, you'd go ahead and get it. So if I'm at TDC here, then I'm just... Now, okay, it didn't start the first time. Now what do? I go ahead and cycle it through until I feel resistance.
Okay.
Decompressor lever, and look at the ammeter. See how far it's deflected? Tells me that it's not at TDC. So decompressor, cycle it through till it hisses, release, try it again. Choke off. Now here's the weird trick.
That sounds great.
Yeah, that short exhaust is really nice. The long exhaust sounds kind of crummy. The short exhaust is well worth it. It's a little bit odd, the getting going sequence. It's always going to want choke to start.
Okay, sure.
So choke to start, and if it's fairly warm, while you're waiting for it to warm up, you will not, if it's first thing in the morning, you will not drive away. Because it won't like it.
With the choke left on, you mean?
Well, at all.
Oh.
First thing in the morning, it wants to warm up for 30 seconds to a minute.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you don't just jump and go.
Okay.
So, choke on, it's going to kind of lug and tell you that, oh, you give me too much choke. So you go choke off, the idle will come up, it'll idle real nice. And you're going to think, oh, okay, let's get going. And then it'll die. It wants to warm up. Give it about 30 seconds with choke off. And then when you're ready to go, choke back on. First gear, drive away. When you get about to your first stop sign, reach down, take the choke back off. You're good to go for the rest of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, it is analog
Yeah.
all the way. I mean, you gotta. It's kind of like I was saying in the posts. You gotta want to understand motorcycling.
Yeah.
Because you got to think about what's the engine want to do, because the BMW got the computer tells it how to do everything.
Yeah, right, exactly.
This bike does not have a computer, and you have to tell it everything you want it to do.
I need to get a 3x5 card laminated.
You just shut the bike down for the end of the day, and so I'm gonna. Okay, I got resistance there, decompressor, wheeze and a hiss. Check the switch, looks good. We're good to go.
Okay. So shutdown is very basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the startup.
Kill
This isn't my
switch.
late to the meeting bike.
No,
Yeah.
you want to give yourself an extra 3 to 5 minutes if
Okay.
you're going to take this one. Kill switch, obviously, this will drive you crazy if you bump it by mistake, because then you'll try to, it won't start,
Yeah.
and then you realize, oh, the kill switch is on.
Yeah.
Okay, another weird thing, you'll definitely want to see this lever right here. This is the neutral finder. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the only bike I ever heard of that has a neutral finder.
Yeah.
You don't need to use it. It's a nice to have. You'll see it's got, on the pointer, it points to the different gears.
Yeah.
Obviously doesn't do you any good while you're riding, but what that does is, if you're in any other gear, all you do, pull in clutch, stomp on the neutral finder, and it'll push it straight to neutral
From fourth,
from any gear.
any gear.
Yep.
That's nice.
Yeah. So again, I won't do it when we're sitting without moving, but yeah, clutch, jam on that with your heel, and
Okay.
it'll switch it to neutral.
So do you use that at startup just to?
I've never used it.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
why it's on there. Some people maybe like it.
Yeah.
It may have been more useful when the gear shift was on the other side, maybe.
Oh.
Maybe with the right side gear shift, maybe it was easier than doing this with your toe. You could just reach up and jam it.
Yeah.
I've never used it.
Okay.
Speaking of neutral, there is a false neutral between second and third.
Okay.
So you want to do a real firm shift going from 2 to 3. Otherwise, it'll fall into that false neutral.
One down,
And then
3 up.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yep, normal shift pattern. But if you miss that second to third, it'll go into that false neutral, and you roll on the gas, and it'll go. And you're like, oh shoot, I missed this shift. So
Yeah.
clutch, shift, there it is.
Okay.
I think those are all the gotchas that are different from a normal bike. We talked about the decompressor.
Yeah.
And that's it as far as there is no oil light. I think the book actually states that if there's oil in the tank, then it has oil pressure.
Okay. Gotcha.
There's no oil light. You've got high beam neutral turn signal.
But if there's loss of pressure for some reason, is there an engine temperature?
Nope.
Oh wow.
Nope.
Okay.
So like I said, the book is very specific about it. If you got oil, you got pressure.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. I guess it's a fairly simple mechanical oil pump. So.
Does it burn? I mean, do you have to add very often?
No, it doesn't hardly use any oils.
Okay.
The only times I've had to add oil is from wet sumping.
Okay.
You know, if I forget and let it sit. Now that being said, even if you set it TDC, and it sits all winter for 3-4 months, you're going to have a cloud of smoke when you start it up.
Yeah, sure.
You know, okay. And I won't put it on the cement. I'll put it in the grass for that first start, just in case it
Okay.
spits oil out. That way I don't have to go clean up a mess on the cement.
Yeah, that makes sense. Beautiful. Rubber looks good.
Yeah. Shouldn't be any issues there. And, they're both tube tires, so even if you had a crack, it wouldn't damage anything.
Are these the original ones?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just always been garaged.
Okay.
And with the high humidity down here, we don't have too much trouble with.
Yeah, they
with
look
dry
good.
rot.
Okay. Okay.
And the cylinder head, this rubber coupling here,
Yeah.
because it sits right on the cylinder head, it does suffer from dry rot and cracking.
Okay.
If you get the tiniest little crack in this, it's going to suck air in, and it's going to make it impossible to set the idle.
Okay.
So that's something you want to keep an eye on that might need replacing at some point.
All right.
It's got a new one on it, or a fairly new one on it now, so it's not a problem. But when I initially was having trouble with it, and I asked Pete about it online, and that's the one where he said, well, that's normal for an Enfield. That's why God gave you opposable thumbs, so you could roll the throttle at a stop sign.
Okay.
Now that being said, I got a fresh one and took care of it, and did some fine tuning on the carb that took care of it.
Okay.
But that's something to look out for.
All right.
If you start having problems where, man, I just can't get this thing to idle, I've messed with the mixture, I can't get it to idle correctly, you might want to look at that and replace it. It's a couple bucks.
Okay. Wow. So